I think living in this world, we are surrounded by stories every moment.
Ain't nothing gonna change.
And now with the help of technology and the internet, we can hear stories from really far away and then share them widely.
In that sense, digital storytelling is no different from any other way that we tell stories. We're looking for human connection.
Strong and intentional visuals with thoughtful sound design, well-structured narratives, diversity of themes. There are all aspects that we were really reflecting on when deciding on the nominees.
Something that makes you sit back and say, wow.
It goes beyond the headlines of the news cycle. It is in-depth storytelling, gives more nuanced perspectives, and also digital storytelling allows for people to tell stories in digestible formats.
That's usually a bit more attention-grabbing and sometimes exciting.
We were really interested in truth and authenticity.
And we also looked at the regions that they were coming from. We found some really important stories by teams that don't have as much financial support, for instance.
Unsurprisingly, the most recurring theme is the COVID-19 pandemic. It has been and still is the dominating theme of the world. And it has impacted and still is impacting so many of us. Doesn't matter where we are.
So we saw a lot of struggle, grief and injustice, but then also a counter to that with stories wanting change.
We really wanted to make sure that we were representing some of the biggest stories of the year.
One of the most important and historical years of humankind in our generation.
The last thing that I remember was someone saying, "Oh, a parade." And so we went down to go see the parade. And I laugh about it to this day because it was a parade to get the black people out of Rosedale.
The New York Times took a viral video that had shown a group of young black children in the northern parts of New York City who had walked unknowingly into the middle of a white pride parade.
But he threw the rock. He tried to hit my sister, but he...
So I think this production is important for the audience to see because back in the 1970s when this was filmed, it would have just disappeared and been hidden away. But now, because we're in the age of social sharing, this kind of issue is highlighted and being talked about.
Even though people are talking about events that happened 45 years ago, they feel very present and alive. I think that these kids who are now adults don't seem to think that much has changed in the time that has passed. And consequently, neither do we.
Our goal is to save as many lives as quickly as we can. And I'm sure with your dedication towards this work, we can actually achieve this.
Blood Rider is a thrilling piece about how to get donated blood across Lagos in intense traffic to the people that need it the most.
So one side is around Joseph and his rather anxious trips on a motorbike to make the blood deliveries. And then the other side is the pregnant women. They're giving birth, but they're in danger of losing blood.
It not only draws the audience deeply into the story, and also makes us ask hard questions about larger issues in the country.
Calling Back from Wuhan is a remarkable story, a very intimate story about the devastating consequences of the pandemic on a man and his family.
I think it shows a really human side of how folks in Wuhan had to deal with the virus beyond just like a headline, beyond a statistic.
It's a realistic documentary, and what the story is very tragedy. The film was made very, very sincerely.
我这还看不了是吧？你的不是等着他今天那个。
I think the use of the phone calls and the archival footage was really beautiful in this film.
The rhythm of the film, it brings a very dramatic and a sensation of urgency, which I think it reinforces the narrative of the film itself.
Good Morning, My Wife in Heaven documents the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It looks at the man's life who is coming to terms with grieving for his wife and has this unique look of him, different portraits of him trying to move on and do all the things that he either relied on his wife to do or did with her.
Zeroing in on one man's loss of his wife may not tell the whole story of COVID, but it tells a potent and emotional one.
It made me cry. I think it was just so touching to see this man's experience, him sending messages on the cell phone app to his wife and then replaying the messages. I think the storytellers who documented the story really took time to spend with him and get him to reveal what he was going through, and I think that was really, really powerful.
The emotion delivered from the letters are so raw and intense, and the production gives the audience enough space without any distractions to let the audience be fully immersed in it.
Arreglan los problemas sin puro disparar o hacer desorden. No lo arreglan así en conversar o nada de eso.
The Eternity of Tomorrow focuses on the violence and trauma that was faced by Mapuche youth in Chile.
The physical, the psychological traumas that the different forms of repression and violence carried out by the government and powerful organizations have on these communities.
Sé que empezarán que lastiman a los niños chicos.
The Eternity of Tomorrow is a beautiful film. It's gorgeous. And the artistry with which these horrible stories are told is just so careful.
The flow between the still images, the sound, it's seamless, and it takes us to an emotional journey other than a rational one.
I would like this movie to encourage the small people to stand up and to protect their resources, their land, and their own lives.
Iswihan po sa mga tao kabayad sa buwak. Ang bago ilawap sa yuta. Na kung masuko, nagurog daw ang yuta.
To Calm the Pig Inside looks at the devastation of a typhoon on a small seaside town in the Philippines. It mixes magical realism and myth and legend with the stark reality of the aftermath of a natural disaster. The filmmaker intermixes these kind of beautiful memories of her grandmother and of kind of small drawings from children in the town to kind of look at this childlike experience of trauma and devastation.
Usahay, makauna-una ko. Pasin sulula lang tong nibalik.
It's a very intimate voiceover, the very striking visuals, the very thoughtful sound design. It makes it a very remarkable experience to watch it.
It's a wake-up call for everybody to watch this film and feel like, oh, we can be that person. We can be the victim of environmental disaster if we don't do anything to develop the problem